Hello everyone, welcome back to my second tutorial, where I'll create our first Django application. I'm continuing from my first part. As you can see, I already created a new copy of my first tutorial and I'll continue working on it. So, before moving forward, please like this video, subscribe, share, and this will really help me to grow my channel. So, let's continue. In our first tutorial, we learned how to prepare our Django project backbone for development. Django, well, is meant to be highly modular. When you create an application such as a forum for one site, you should quickly move your forum application to another site and install it immediately if you want so. Well, with that in mind, let's add our first actual app to the project. So let's install our environment stuff. So here is a bin, and in bin I have the script that will install everything for me. And there is a tab, environment, and ubuntu.sh because I'm using one. And what the fuck does it mean? I'll go back here and add this one. Okay, let's move on. And as you can see, it installed all the requirements for me and already activated the environment. That's amazing, isn't it? Yeah. So we will use manage.py to do all the stuff for us. So this additional Py script will allow you to perform actions on your project. We'll use it to create our first application. Next, please run the following command in your terminal or command line to create the main application that will live inside our local library project. So, but be sure to run this command in the same folder as the project main manage.py file exists. So I type a python manage.py and start app, and I'll call it main. As you can see, it appeared here. So that's what was really quick, and you should see that a new directory called main directory has been created. So now the highest level of your project structure should look very similar to mine. The tool creates a new folder and fills it with files for different program parts. As I showed you right now, most files are named according to their purpose. For example, views should be stored in view.py, models in model.py, and test, for example, in test.py. Administration site configuration is in admin.py, and application registration in apps.py. And have some standard code to start working with related objects inside of these files. In addition, we now have a migration folder that stores migrations, files that allow you to update the database when you automatically modify models. And we also have a init.py where an empty file was created to recognize Django Python as a Python package, and it allows its objects to be used in other parts of the project. So, okay, great. Let's go ahead and start your server now, and as before, we'll use the manage.py. It should be best to open a separate terminal command prompt to start the new server. Well, but because I'm using VS Code, I'll simply open a new window for my development stuff. So I'm running a python manage.py as before and run server. And as you can see, it is running right now, and you should see very similar stuff and that our migrations are applied yet, and we can ignore them for now. We'll talk about this later. We now should see that our development server is currently running at following address, and if you open the browser, I can do this, open the browser, you should see very similar, or at least the same window. So, okay, move back. This is just a default Django template. We saw this in first tutorial that's already brought together with the Django library if you're not handling the homepage yourself yet. We'll replace this template with our own. As I said before, I'll leave the server running in the background from now, and I must mention that Django uses a plugin called the Model View Controller. The Following three things are used to provide data for each Django website page you visit. So there's a model, view, and a controller, and in short, model is a database abstraction that contains objects mapped to your server database. For example, we have a tutorial series, tutorial, a user, and etc. You'll need to define these models, and Django handles the rest for us. You can even change your models, and after applying migrations, Django can help you manage database changes in seconds. Not an expected how or more than if you would be doing this manually by yourself. View is how you will represent your data. This is where you will render and visualize things to a user. And the last is controller that describes how your URLs are linked to a views. Although we call it model view controller MVC, you can imagine it to be other way around. The user will revisit the URLs and the controller will specify a specific view, and then this view can then optionally of course be associated with your models. However, you can simplify this slightly for learning purposes and have the controller point to your view, and view can return a string to get a feel for how things connect. So let's register our first created application right now. In Django, all applications are registered by adding them to the installed apps in the main settings file. So open the same file and scroll down to the installed applications list, and at the end here let's add the main, and of course I'll comment that add our new application here, or applications, doesn't matter. The new line specifies the object of the program configuration main generated for your new main application when you create an application. So you might notice that there are many more installed apps. This enables the support of the Django administration side and the features it uses, including authentication, sessions, and etc. So next, we need to specify our databases. If you scroll down, where it was, I missed it. So it is here. As you can see, this is also the point where you need to specify the project database. It's recommended to use the same database for development and production where possible to avoid minor differences in behavior. You can learn about the different options and possibilities in official Django documentation. Of course, I'll add a link in my text version tutorial. Well, for now, we'll use the SQLite database for this project because we don't expect to have a lot of concurrent access on our development database. Although no extra work is required to set it up. You can see how easy it is to configure the database at the settings. So later I'll show you how to change that, but that's on future tutorial. But because we use SQLite, no other setup is required here right now. Later I'll show you how to migrate SQLite to PostgreSQL. That is one of the best open source databases for now. And there's also other project settings. Here we can configure the server. However, you probably only want to change the time zone, and if I'll write a time zone, there is right now an ETC, but for example you can write Europe, London, or other, it doesn't matter. It depends on what location you're creating your website. Yeah, I'll leave the link in my text version tutorial. There are also two other settings that you won't change for now, but you should know. It's a secret key. I'll show you this for now because it's only development, but the secret key is used as a part of Django website security policy. If you do not save this code when developing, you'll need to use another code, possibly read from an environment variable or file to start the production server save. Well, actually, that's like a secret key to protect your website from hackers and I don't know, etc. And there is also a debug, as you can see. This allows debug logs to be displayed instead of HTTPS return status code responses. This option should be set to false in production, as debugging information is really helpful to hackers and attackers, but of course, because we are developing, we can leave it as true for now. And of course, when we deploy our website to the production server, well, we'll return to these settings. The default Django project is created using a URL map file, which we can open right now. And in the project folder, this file exists. Although you can use this file to handle all URL mappings, but it's more common to defer the mapping to the associated application. So open this file and note that instructional text which explains some of the ways to use the URL mapper. Of course, you can delete this, but I'll leave this for you. So the URL mapping handles using the URL patterns variable, which is a list of Python path functions. Each path function associates a URL template with a specific view that will be displayed when the template matches. Initially, the list of URL patterns is a single function that links all URLs to the admin side URL module, which contains the administrative program URL mapping definition. The root in the path function is string that defines a rule to match a pattern. This pattern will match all the URLs. Well, I'll explain this later. So now we only have one URL here, and apparently to some administration page that we are not paying attention at the moment. Our goal is to point a new URL to the new view. By the way, Django sees our website as a set of locations, so the url.py file inside our primary app will point to your apps most of the time. So how do we point to an app? Well, that's really simple. I'll create a new line here, very similar to this one. Of course, I can copy this, and now it is a nothing. Actually, it's a single bracket. And here I'll use an include, and now instead of this I'll include my main.urls.py. That's not a dot. Main.urls. So this file doesn't exist yet, but we'll create this. So aside from the extra pack, don't forget to include Django URLs here. Okay, now Django knows that when a given path is empty, homepage for example, it will look at the urls.py file for the main application to see if that file controller points to a view that would have some function inside the view.py. Before continuing any further, I should mention that Django does not support static files such as CSS, JavaScript, and images by default, but this can be useful for the development web server when you build your site. So by adding this URL renderer, you can enable static file rendering by appending them to make the final urls.py. So the file would look following. So if settings is debug, we do that URL patterns, we append this with static, and here is settings.media URL and the document root. Okay, it still needs a static, so from Django conf import settings, and ends also from Django conf URLs static import static. Cool. So now we should have a now we should get document root. No, it doesn't give it to me. That is equal to settings.media root. So this is how we include stuff with our static files. And of course, we use the debugging statement because all these files are handled different in the production environment when we move our website to the production server. So we'll come to these later. We have yet modified or create our main urls.py file, and we have not made any views yet, so let's do both now. And let's navigate out to Django project and the main application we created. It's here, and we see that there is already various things here, but there is no urls.py file. This is where we'll add our main application pattern and as we build it. So let's add it, and we create urls.py, and this will look very similar to our previous file, but yeah, it will be slightly different. So from Django.urls import path. Next is from local for the import views, and this is not frame, it's from, so from a typo. And our URL patterns URL pattern, it should be no. Why it imported this to me? I don't need this. Your pattern will be equal to, not a path, it will be equal to, yeah, actually to the path. Here is nothing, then is our views and homepage function, and next is our, here's the views, and here is our name that will be equal to homepage. That's it for now. So we import path same as before. Later it will become beneficial when we want to reference URLs dynamically. As I said, Django is highly modular, and even if you're going to change URL paths or use someone else's application, but maybe use different URL paths, you can do it effortlessly. For this reason, we also give the name as path parameter. Next, let's navigate out to views, new views, and now we have everything to run the controller. When someone visits the homepage, Django first looks at a Django project, Django website, urls.py, seeing that it points to the project main urls.py, which then points to the views homepage. So, function. So, views.py already exists here, but we don't have our homepage function there. However, open that and let's create it. So I'll call it the define homepage, and here is our request, and we'll return here something, but we still need to import from Django HTTP. We import HTTP response, and we return this HTTP response, and we'll return some string, and we'll call it this is our homepage. It works, and let's shout this out loud. So typically this view will perform certain specific functions for us and return some rendered HTML template and pass some variables, but we'll make it simpler for now. Moving on, we currently have the entire backbone of the project. Instead of returning plain text on your homepage, the site isn't doing anything yet, but it's worth running it to make sure none of our changes have broken anything. Before doing so, we should first run the database migration. This updates our database and removes some development warnings. So Django uses the object relationship mapper, ORM called, to associate model definitions in the Django code with the data structure used in the database. Django tracks the changes and can create database migration scripts for us to automatically migrate the primary data structure in the database to match the models. For instance, in Flask, we had to create these transfers manually. When we create our Django project, it automatically added several modules for us by the site's admin section. So let's run the following command to define the tables for these modules in the database. As the same Python, manage.py, and make migrations. Let's see. Yeah, we see some error here. what's this? I don't know. Views, homepage, and it says you don't see this page. Why? From dot import views homepage. Okay, I see what's wrong. I missed the S here at the end, so let's call it again. No change detected, and then we call migrate. Okay, the migrations were applied. Remember that you will need to run these commands each time the models change to affect the data structure you want to store, including adding and removing entire models and individual fields. The make migrations command creates the migrations for all applications installed in your project. You can specify the application name to run migration for a single project. This allows you to verify the code of these migrations before applying them. If you're an expert in Django, you can adjust them. However, if any errors in the code affect the database, you will be notified and will have to correct them before making the migrations. As you saw, right now I faced an error in URL patterns. So I missed the S and it wrote me this. I need to get deeper into error to find the error. The migration to your database is applied by the migrate command. As you saw, Django will track which of them have already been included in the current database. But for now, it simply created an empty database for me from zero. While developing the Django web server, it's highly recommended to run it on your local machine and view it on your local browser. Developing a web server is not performance or robust enough to be used in a production server. Still, it's a straightforward way to get your Django website up and running during development to get a convenient quick view and test. By default, it will run the server on your local computer, as you saw, and I'm not running it yet, but if you have enough knowledge, you can also specify the other computers on your network to do that. So if I'll write a Python manage.py run server, it should run just perfectly. If you're not running it in the background, so run it as I did it right now. Now head back to a browser and refresh it, and now on the home page you should see the text. This is our homepage. It works. So actually that was it for this tutorial. I'll stop here and I suggest you make sure you can do without using a tutorial, same as in the previous tutorial part. So start a new project, add an application, configure the url.py file so that the homepage points to the view and that view returns a simple string. Things will get even worse, more complicated, so you need to understand these basics by now. Feel free to use Google if you're having some trouble at the same point. As we progress, I would suggest continuing to do so. Save the project at the end of each tutorial, then make a copy of the project in the next part. Follow the tutorial and then try to do it with the copy without the help of the tutorial. You may forget to import paths or function names. It's okay. You want to make sure you understand what connections needed to be made. At the same point, it would be a good idea to work on your own project website while grabbing ideas from these tutorials. You have now created a complete Django website backbone, as you see right now, which you can populate with URLs, models, views, templates, etc. So that's it for this tutorial. Thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, share. This will really help me to grow my channel, and see you in the next part. Bye.